First, I want to thank our sponsors, our visual arts sponsors, Comfort Keepers, without whom we wouldn't have the exhibitions to have programming around. So thank you to them. And then also thank you to Roast and Toast, who provide us every week with this coffee and pastry setup. If you're on our Zoom audience, you have to come in and get some coffee sometime. Today we're going to talk with Tan-A-Hoffman, the education director at the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians, and Jordan Shenaniquit with the Indigenous Education Initiative with the state of Michigan. Perfect. We're going to talk about the Anishinaabe-Made Learning Bundle resources. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn it right over to them. Awesome. Thank you.
Make lunch. Please bear with us. This is our first personal rollout with the two of us. And so we're super excited to be here with you and thank you for the opportunity to share. Ani, Bojo, hi, hello. Tan-A-Hoffman and Dishnakas, Mukwa and Dodom, Bawating and Da, Grand Rapids and Donjabat. And I'm the education director for Little Traverse. So what I just gave you is our traditional introduction, and that's one way that we, as Anishinaabe people, create relationships with one another. We extend who we are, where we're from, so that the people in community can then make those connections with us, and then start to make connections from their own communities to people we may know together, which, establishes that relationship with one another. So what I said was, of course, my name is Tan-A-Hoffman. I live in Sault Ste. Marie right now, but I am from Grand Rapids. And so that kind of gives individuals a chance to go ahead and, like I said, make those connections. So it's great to be here with you.
Mino kijep and dinwa maganadok, Anishinaabe Odawa Kwendao, Waganaxino Odawa and Doda Bandagwas, Name and Dodem, Ajawa Gijako Kwe and Dishnakaj, Jordan and Dojaganashi Noswen, Ina the Wenjige Indon Jinokitage Nahao. Good morning, relatives. That's literally what I just said. Mino Kijep and Dino Maganadok. Like Tana had said, when we introduce ourselves in these ways, we're building relationship and we extend that relationship to you all in this space and on the virtual space. Ani, good morning. I'm glad to be with you all today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jordan Shenaniquit. I am a citizen of the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. I am Sturgeon Clan, very good friends with my Kinomagekwe, my educator woman here, Tana. Allison had mentioned in our introductions, I work for the Indigenous Education Initiative for Michigan Department of Education. I used to also serve in the tribal space with tribal education, and I'm very grateful to be here today. Miigwech. So a little bit about Tana and I's relationship. We opened up in relationship.
And other than friendship.
And some people say we look related. We did try to match a little bit this morning too. For those of you who can't see, got our Bigfoot. It's springtime. It's all for that. But not only are we relatives in lots of different spaces, but we come today as particular relatives, and that's as co-governance partners. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the Indigenous Education Initiative. We're an initiative housed through Michigan Department of Education. We work with the 12 federally recognized tribal nations throughout the state through CMTED, which is a consortium of, it's the Confederation of Michigan Tribal Education Departments. Tana, do you want to say anything else about that?
Sure. So the Confederation of Michigan Tribal Education Departments is a collaboration. We gather together to not just lobby, but to go ahead and plan our intentions for where we see tribal education in Michigan going. And so as the 12 federally recognized tribes, we gather to do that specifically with that intent. And so through this collaboration, we were able to create some beautiful and very astounding work that we'd like to share with you today.
Yes, and that is going to be the basis of our conversation. It's the product of our partnership, our relationship. And please notice that we are both a bee and a flower and, pollinators. And what do we make? We make delicious honey, something beautiful and nourishing for all of us.
Good medicine.
Yeah, good medicine. So before we jump in, though, I'd like to start by asking a simple question with just a raise of hands. How many of you speak more than one language?
Right? Okay, try to speak more than one language.
Okay, let me rephrase it. How many of you kind of speak more than one language? All right, awesome, awesome. That's actually quite a bit of hands.
Mhm.
What if I told you that everyone in this room can speak up to 6 languages? Just not all of them are word-based.
Mhm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can see, they're not word-based.
Yep.
They're not
Yeah.
like you and I talking right now, because that's a language, right? We're speaking English at the moment, but you can see things. You
Mhm.
can hear, you can touch, you can smell, you can taste. Those are all ways you take in the world, ways you make meaning, ways you understand. Those are all ways of knowing. But most of us were not taught to think about them that way. We were taught to think about learning as something that's written, something explained, something we receive. And when we think about learning that narrowly, it shapes what we recognize as knowledge and what we don't. That same pattern shows up in how we learn about people, about place, and about history. Some ways of knowing are centered, others are minimized or left out altogether. But each and every one of you can speak up to 6 languages in here when you think about it that way. And this is kind of what we're asking in this work too. It's actually pretty simple, but it's not small. We're asking people to expand what they recognize as knowledge and pay attention to how they come to know this knowledge. When we say step into our stories, we mean that literally. And step into our stories is what we call this work that speaks about this learning bundle, which we'll get into in a little bit. But this work is an invitation to learn through Anishinaabe ways of knowing and being, ways that are relational, experiential, grounded in story, language, land, and lived experience, not as an add-on, but as a different way of understanding. And that's where this work comes from. This is the step into our stories work. You're going to see that little girl quite a bit in our story as we keep talking along. And just showing kind of a picture of some of the many people, you know, when Tan and I were talking about our co-governance relationship, that includes a whole group of individuals, community members, relatives, knowledge keepers, elders, cultural bearers, language speakers, superintendents, youth, teachers. We all work together to produce what we're going to talk about today. And I think that's just really important to kind of highlight and share. Sorry, my clicker. So one of the next things we're going to do, because we've spent a lot of time on that, we're going to play a video that speaks to how this work came to be, who was part of it, and why it matters. And as you watch, just pay attention to what you're taking in, what stands out, and what stays with you.
What does it mean to belong to this land? To carry stories, language, and memory while moving forward. This is not a history that ended. It's a history still living in us. For generations, indigenous voices were excluded from how Michigan's history was told. But across the state, educators and tribal citizens are building something new, together. They welcome you into this space as relatives in the hope that we can collectively change the way we teach indigenous histories, cultures, and contemporary contributions. Together, we can foster learning environments that honor indigenous ways of knowing, teaching, and connecting.
It wasn't any one thing, it was a collective of so many of us wanting to know more, some of us having the knowledge and wanting to share, a multitude of educators, community people. Actually, it was a product of our boarding school survivors and them wanting to tell their stories too.
I had never learned about my own people until I started working for the tribe. For me, it was an important thing for Indigenous students to learn where they came from, what did their ancestors go through, and just learning that sense of belonging.
Telling a more honest story means shifting how we teach and how we listen. It means making room for more than one truth at a time.
What we're really asking people to do is have a worldview shift. We're asking folks to broaden their perspectives too. When I think about history, the way it has been taught in my school systems, even into higher education, more often than not, we teach history in a way that's black and white. This is the truth. And if it's not written in a book, then it's not true. Truth is perspective. You can stand in a circle and witness the same event happen, and depending on where you're standing in that circle, you might see something different, and both of those things can hold true. And that's, I think, part of what this process is happening too, is that we're asking educators, learners to broaden their perspectives to understand that, well, yes, this one part of history can be true, so can these things too, and inviting people to look at beyond what's just written in a history book and broadening those perspectives and stories that are often not included in our histories that are taught.
Before we can even begin to teach about those important parts of history, we have to create a foundational understanding of who we are as people, that we do still exist today, that we live, work, play, thrive on this land, and that we are sovereign tribal nations interacting with the state of Michigan. The way that we're going to do that is through the creation of essential understandings. What does every citizen, not just students, but every citizen in Michigan, what do they need to know and understand about Anishinaabe people before you can go any further? And so through community and engaging with Anishinaabe people from all over what we now know as Michigan, we've created 15 essential understandings. These are the 15 101 basic things that you need to know about Anishinaabe people in our state. Even that alone, if students get through our K-12 public education system and they are familiar with those things and understand them, that's a generational impact, and we're really looking forward to that.
It's a depth of knowledge. So somebody that could be 35-year-old coming in at the awareness level is at the same level as maybe a 12-year-old. But it's just because where they know how deep into those teachings they can get.
The framework itself is an invitation to come into our worldview, to see things a little bit different. It's very experiential. It's about relating to things, learning by doing. That's very much an indigenous knowledge system principle.
We're tactile learners, Anishinaabe are. That's one of the things that we want to kind of give them experience in. So everything we do, we kind of have EE experience, like experiential education. So that way they're learning the same way we would have to a certain degree. They're seeing outside of the box, you know.
In Anishinaabe ways of learning, relationship is the foundation, experience is the teacher, language is the vessel, and stories are the bridge between generations.
As we had a speaker talk about boarding schools, and then we did a activity where we were standing on different parts of a blanket. We were talking about the land, being taken away, and as the land was taken away, we had to go away. We had to be silent. And as I was standing there, it really began to bother me that I didn't speak up and use my language to introduce myself, because I thought of all of the boarding school kids who lost their language and who couldn't speak it. And here am I, a person who can speak it, and I chose not to. And so it kind of, struck my heart, the importance of speaking the language when I can. And so when it came time for my part, I said, wait, and I said, Michelle Sims, Indigenous, Mukwan Dodam, Anishinaabe, Keenan Dojaba. And then I told them why that I did that, because when that was taken away, it was kind of like when the kids from the boarding school were taken away and they weren't able to speak their language. And so I had to stand up and do it right then, because I felt like I needed to do that, because it's important. If I can speak it and they couldn't speak it, I needed to do that.
When we think about the importance of language being so tied to who we are culturally and as a people, without our language, without our culture, we're not different. We are the same, and that's what distinguishes us and makes us different. Ani Bushu, Anishinaabe-Odawa, Kwayandao, Waganaksin Odawa, and Doda Bandagwas, Neme and Dodam, Jordan and Dola Jaganashi Nozwan, Anishinaabe-Aki and Donjaba, Kinamage Kwe, and Donanje Nahau.
Wabzi Kwe Indigenous, Name Dodam, Saganachapwakin, and Donjaba, Gishwasado no Nangshe.
Buju, Makwan Indigo, Minwa, Aaron Chivas Indigenous, Mikizi and Dodem, Washinang and Dojaba, Minwa, Kichi Wikwirong and Dida, Kinamage and Nina Minwa, Shkabe was in Nene and Dao.
This work is about more than curriculum. It's about healing, it's about remembering, and it's about creating space where Indigenous students and all students can see themselves.
Big reason why some of our people, the Anishinaabe people, don't know those teachings or our language, because it was taken away. We're trying to cover those areas that you definitely don't hear about. I mean, like I said, things have picked up the last few years, but I wouldn't say that there's a grand scale of the population in Michigan, much less the US or Canada, that know a lot about some of the things that are covered within the curriculum.
We brought together a group of allies, classroom teachers, administrators, superintendents, people from the Michigan Department of Education. What do you think of this? This is the direction we're going in. Here's the experience of what we're trying to convey through these professional learning modules and these lesson plans. And the feedback that we got was great. It was transformational for a lot of people. We had a student who just graduated high school in the mix, and she was upset because she couldn't believe that she got all the way through Michigan's, K-12 public education system, had not heard any of what we were talking about, and wondered why. And she felt like it was unfair. And she's right, it was unfair. It was unfair to her, and it's unfair to all of the students who are currently going through that system, who don't receive Indigenous, histories and stories. And so I thought that was a success as well, because we actually got to hear from our young people the things that they deserve and want in their educational experience.
This is just the beginning. Across Michigan, Indigenous educators and allies are reshaping what's possible by telling the truth, teaching with love, and building something that lasts.
What we're doing right now is creating a really important foundation for Indigenous education, not just Indigenous history. Because the things that we're designing, from the essential understandings to the learning principles to this awareness, understanding, and truth framework, it's not just relevant to history. It's relevant to all principles of learning, whether it's science, language arts, or history, or so many other things. And so for me, in a long-term success would be to see this work and the learning principles and the essential understandings, again, the foundation that we're creating, to be built out for the multiple disciplines, not just history. That's my, the big win.
This is what's going to help build so that when we're gone, the next group will build on, what we're doing to just continue for the kids to learn and people to learn and understand.
It's awesome because they're retracing who they are, reconnecting. They might have got adopted out, or they might have, this, that, or other. So it's cool that, to be able to help those that, may not have anywhere else to turn, or may not have, another way to uncover that. So there's a couple different things that I think, moving forward, our children will be able to, hey, that's cool. That's who we are. It's something that, like I said, building that identity, building who we are. And so that way, hopefully one day down the road, we don't have to make stuff like this, because just all of us know.
Everyone deserves to know and understand the history and stories of the land we all live, work, and play on.
So now that we've kind of had a moment to digest or time to listen to that and listen to the voices that we've just heard, we're going to do the classic education engagement piece. Now it's the turn and talk. And so during a turn and talk, I'm going to ask you to either a shoulder partner, since we're not around the carpet, we're not going to do knee partners, but please take a moment. And I want you to think about what were some of the things that you noticed in that video? What were some of the things that came to mind? What were some of the things that maybe touched your heart? And I'm going to give you just maybe 1 or 2 minutes to go ahead and have that quick conversation. It's with the hopes that you'll share afterwards for a little swag, maybe a gift or two. So please go ahead and take a moment and just kind of chat with a neighbor. If you don't have somebody close, please eye somebody up and bring them into your circle. Go ahead and start that now.
And for those of you on Zoom, feel free to answer those questions that are on the screen in the chat.
Thank you. Forgot about Zoom. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I remember.
Mhm. Mhm.
I will be in a brown.
What's that?
I will be in a brown.
Okay.
Here's these.
Oh, yeah. Do you guys touch me?
There we go. I'm gonna try and capture some of the reflection share out.
Okay. What's that? Oh. I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds. About 15 seconds to wrap up your thoughts with one another.
Three reflections.
Start with the music. Okay. Sounds like everybody had some really good conversations. I heard a couple of things, and so I'm super excited. I hope that you'll share out. Is anybody want to, you'll go ahead and share out if possible, if you want to, and then I'll repeat it for our Zoom friends, a shorter version for that, if that's okay. And Jordan, of course, has gifts to give.
For our participants.
Exactly.
Who are willing to share.
So anybody want to share? Okay, good. We've got two. Okay, go ahead and go first.
The lady that mentioned that she had just graduated high school and didn't know anything else he taught.
Right.
It made me think about how having a language credit is required to graduate from high school. And like, why with the native languages are, as far as I'm aware, I don't think that's offered ever.
So for those on Zoom, it was about the noticing was about language credits for Anishinaabe-Made. And actually, I am certified with the state of Michigan to teach Anishinaabe-Made. That is on my teacher's certification. So it does happen, unfortunately, it just doesn't happen in so much in this region. And it's about one of the things that Aaron Chavez had talked about those Indian federal Indian policies, right? So that our families left areas and then are now in the process of coming back. And so in Sault Ste. Marie and the Eastern Upper Peninsula, we have a higher number of Native Americans, Anishinaabe students, and so you will see more of that available there. That's where I spent 25 years. I've just recently retired. 25 years in education in the Upper Peninsula. Miigwech. And so, and now I've, taken on this new position and loving every bit of it. But that was one of the reasons why I also became an Anishinaabe-Moan language speaker and then was able to certify through the state of Michigan as well with that, because that's one of those pieces, right? So good. Beautiful noticing. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
All that Kim began to you about the educational piece.
Okay.
How many people avail themselves of this opportunity? I can see it. I think the place to start with everyone, both the Caucasian and Chinese students, needing to know not just about the language, but about the heritage.
Absolutely.
And there's a great book. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the Indians of Hidden Hollow.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's just
It's a great book.
wonderful book that talks about them coming and settling on the Bear River
Okay.
and all the things that they started.
Mhm.
And there's so many links to people I know now, their ancestors.
Absolutely.
But what I've done some work with the Native Americans, and what I found with the adults was that, one family I worked with, they had a dirt bathroom in California. And so, and another person, she does the, and, they would not have ever thought about availing themselves of any opportunity to learn about their heritage. Is there a way to get them involved in that process when these people were just struggling to live?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that reigniting, right? The opportunity to learn about our Indigenous ways of knowing and being. And it's very complex. There's no easy answer. And it is a very personal choice when somebody decides to take that step. And unfortunately, just reflecting on my own family history, it has a lot of trauma responses to it. And so that is a barrier to rekindling those connections. I can't speak for that family or the people that you've worked with, but I can think about my own path, and that was one of them. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but with this work and with it being in public education, it gives all students a platform to rekindle without those emotional responses, we believe. Doing it in a way that considers community and builds relationship. And we'll talk more about how we do that through the founding documents that we have all created. It creates a beautiful bouquet of learning for not just Indigenous learners, but for all learners in the state of Michigan and at all ages. That's the other beautiful part about it. Do you have something else you want to speak to that?
I think that was a beautiful way to summarize that.
Okay, all right. And yes.
I thought they were still teaching the language in Harbor Spring.
Right? And that's not happening.
Not.
No. So we do in Michigan have what's called Title VI education. But usually what's happening with Title VI education is that it's getting lumped in with other Title IX or Title, at-risk education and lots of other pieces. And so these things are getting piecemealed in the actual setting. And so another issue with this is that we don't have Anishinaabe teachers teaching Title VI. And so imagine not being Anishinaabe, not being Odawa, not being Ojibwe, and not being Potawatomi, and then trying to step into those spaces. We have a lot of teachers don't feel comfortable trying to speak the language. I have a hard time with it, and I'm certified. But then on top of it, they don't feel like they've been given permission, maybe at some times, to teach culture as well, right? And so that's the disconnect that we as a team wanted to connect. Okay, and so we'll talk more about how we do that. Thank you for sharing.
No, Ray, Kyoto, uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and he was flowing.
Yeah, and we do in Harbor Springs. Claire has been working so hard this year. She's new in the Title VI position. And she's really excited about the work that she's doing there. And she is really excited about providing those opportunities and has been working with myself and another one of my staff members to create excellent opportunities for Indigenous students in Harbor Springs. But once again, that's not the norm. So one of the things that I think we might have heard is that Indigenous education in public schools in Michigan is been incomplete. It's not been a complete process. It hasn't been taught in that way. And maybe also perspective. We can see that different perspectives are happening in different places within Michigan as well, right? Some students are getting Anishinaabe-Made and have that ability to add that perspective in the Upper Peninsula, but not so much in the Lower Peninsula, it seems like. And then also, we can say that this work that we're doing is specifically responding to all of your thoughts and so much more that we're going to get into. We're excited to share that with you. So this is exactly what we're going to be walking through, and we're going to be talking about this learning bundle and all of these things that you've noticed just now.
Me watch, Tana.
Yeah.
And the reason why we decided to start with this video too is it explains the so what. Why does all of this matter? Why are we creating these things? It's for those relatives, our community members, also our trusted allies who have also been asking for support, knowledge, ways to bring this type of learning into a classroom. So it's just a web of relationships that we've been working within to create this bundle we're talking about today.
Yeah.
So
Excuse me.
as we kind of been touching on, we prioritize Indigenous knowledge systems as the experts in the expert perspective in our work. But that's not to say that we don't have allies in our web of relationships as well. It's really important that we all work together because the reality is we all share geography in the state of Michigan together. We live, work, and play together. We're in the same school systems. We're in the same communities. And, when we know more about one another, we can have better relationships with one another, right? And so the work that has been created was sitting down, talking to grandmothers, talking to knowledge keepers, language speakers, educators, teachers, weavers, fishermen, people who just that make up the many facets of who we are as Indigenous people to come together and have these conversations, to be able to give something that is okay to share. Because I know that's always one of those tension points too, is like, how much do you share? What am I allowed to know? And we know, talking with our non-native educators, so many of us, they need that extra support. So this is all in response to that. And most importantly, Yige Zechkagom Mumpia Yajik, Kina Minwa Manda, Ga Minem Kinakwea Yajik. This work is from all of us to all of you. And that's really important to remember. This is a gift. This is an extension of our relationship to be with you all and to share these things. So,
Off to the bundle.
Finally going to
Let's
start
get to the
talking
good
about the
stuff.
bundle. I know
Let's get to the good stuff.
it's getting to the good stuff. But before we go further, I just want to name something. Everything we're about to share lives inside what we call the bundle, which happens to be the name of this coffee at 10, Anishinaabe Bundle, our learning resources. This is situated within a larger project called Step Into Our Stories, which is that little girl that you saw at the beginning of our slides. That is that's what represents all this body of work, that journey through learning, right? So there are resources. This bundle has two kinds of things in it. There are resources like literature guides, lesson plans, maps, things like that, things you can literally pick up and use in a classroom and community.
Mhm.
And there are three grounding documents: the essential understandings, which you guys have heard a couple of times, the learning principles, and Babinskamat. Those grounding documents are not add-on to the resources. They're the point of view from which the resources make sense. They are the why, the how, and the way learning unfolds. Without them, you might use a lesson plan and still miss what it's actually about. With those grounding documents, everything connects, just like we're all connected. And this is just kind of the learning bundle series or what's in it.
All the fun things you can find in
Yes.
there.
So the essential understandings for Michigan. Our video did a really nice job of kind of unpacking that on a high level of these are core concepts that we believe, we being the folks that have been part of this creation of this materials, this project, are everything you need to know and understand about Anishinaabe people that share geography in the state of Michigan. They were developed with Anishinaabe educators and community members, and they're grounded in lived knowledge and experience. And they're all over too. You know, we made sure we worked with our different tribal nations. We have 12 federally recognized tribal nations in the state of Michigan, 12. And we're not all the same. We don't have same governance. We don't have some of the same customs or participation. Even our languages can be slightly different, the dialects, which is why you see different dialects, even on our essential understandings and all of the materials. We make sure we honor our Potawatomi relatives as well as our Ojibwe relatives, because there are different languages. And so, you know, from going through many different communities throughout the state, many learning sessions, coffees at 10, dinners, soups, this is what we came up with. There are 15 of them. And again, they're the core concepts of what people need to know, whether it is about the way we understand sacred relatives, aka our extended relatives. We don't look at things like trees or, you know, the water as resources to be commodified. We look at them as relatives. These are things that these embody these concepts, and they go in far more depth on our website. But this is just, again, an introduction to that of what these things are supposed to do. Like, before you even start teaching the lesson plan, here are some just general things you need to understand about our worldview, how we engage in the world, how we see things, how we have engaged with things.
Once again, going back to that perspective, right? So being able to take these documents, our essential understandings, and see our perspective so that when you get to the lesson plan, you have a deeper understanding to be able to provide students or even self on what you're learning through that. It'll make those connections a little more for you.
So like when you see a like funny joke, because sense of humor is really important to us as Indigenous people, as Anishinaabe. We love to joke, and you'll see us joking quite a bit. So when there's a joke placed in a lesson that there is a whole lesson plan actually on sense of humor and why it's so important to us. But those are just examples, like Tana was saying, to introduce you all to our worldview and how we see things. So when you start talking about specific moments in history, you can understand it from a different perspective. Kind of like those senses earlier too,
Exactly.
those languages that we speak to make meaning in the world.
Yeah. Now moving on to our Anishinaabe learning principles. So one of the beautiful things about Anishinaabe people is that we have many similar and yet different ways of learning things. And the way that we as community came about together was that we wanted to think about how we as traditional people learned things from our ancestors to be able to do things. For instance, make a Gmon. And then as contemporary individuals, being able to understand now all of the other essential math, science, physics, and then also thinking about plants and trees and ecology, putting all of those pieces together. And how would we as Anishinaabe teach them? And so this is one of the ways in which that we came up with our learning principles. And so you can see here that as Anishinaabe, we have 7 learning principles. Those learning principles are really important. And so when you create those opportunities, either in classrooms or either in other learning opportunities, you can explain or show through example how everything is connected and creating those pathways, understanding that storytelling is the heart of which our language and all of our learning was then provided to younger individuals. You can see kinship and community, like in the way that we started, developing relationships and telling about ourselves. And then you can read the rest on your own. But it's through those pieces that being in relationship with what you are learning is able to shift, once again, that perspective in order to provide an exemplar education.
Hey, so that's very powerful. I just.
We watch.
That's really good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
And just a PSA, we're again just showing you snippets, high level, because we could easily spend a full day on each of these individual. We could spend a full day on essential understandings. We could spend a full day on learning principles. We could spend a full day on what I'm about to talk about.
Yeah.
But there is more details of all of these too, of what it can look like in a classroom, what it feels like, how it could look like,
what it sounds like, all of those pieces.
how you apply it outside or in a classroom or in different spaces.
Yeah.
But again, just wanted to kind of list out what those learning principles are, and again, this was developed by all of our community members and folks we've been working with. We sat down in many conversations, many months, many conversations, hours long, days long, sometimes, trying to figure out what is the most important things.
Right, yeah.
How are
Beautiful
these tools?
stretching and learning opportunities.
True story. So that leads me to talk about the Binskamat. So if the essential understandings ground what we need to know, the essential understandings being the what, and the learning principles guide how learning happens, the Binskamat helps us understand how learning unfolds over time. In many spaces, learning is treated as something linear, right? From point A to point B. You don't know something, now you know it. You move through it, you complete it, you move on. Well, the Binskamat, which when you translate it from Anishinaabe-Made, it speaks to us like a whirlwind, a circle, but not just a circle moving up like a spiral. So think of that in a 3D kind of way. Learning moves through awareness into deeper understanding and into truth, but it doesn't stop there. It's something we return to. Each time we come back, we notice something different. By a quick show of hands, who likes to watch TV series more than once? Okay, I'm also one of those people. How often, after you've watched it a couple of times, you're on that same episode and you're like, dang, I didn't notice that little breadcrumb the director gave me. Think of Babinskamat as something very similar to that. For us as Anishinaabe people, learning is never done. You can come back to the exact same subject matter over and over and over again, and you can still learn something new. Learning is never done.
No.
And that's what Babinskamat kind of speaks to, is that continuous learning journey. You're never going to stop being a learner. And in our framework, Tana touched on this earlier, but our materials, everything that's created in the Step Into Our Stories learning bundle is for children of all ages. It's not grade band specific. It can be adapted to whatever grade band it needs to, or as we like to say, children of all ages, because we recognize so many of us, the majority of us, were never taught this in school or in any context. So how do you know if you don't know? So like this is an invitation to really all of us in that kind of way. But like I said, learning is not something you finish. It's something you continue. And that's what the Binskamat's really speaking to, because deepening knowledge over time is really how meaning making happens for us. It's that reflection piece. It's the asking questions. It's using those different languages that we were talking about earlier, your sense, your touch, your smell, your sight, to deepen your reflection and understanding about the world around you and how it can be a teacher to you as well. Like you said, seen in that last slide, the land is teacher. The land can teach us, just like those animal relatives can too. When we watch birds sing in the beginning of the year, like when the peepers start singing around this time, that means the walleye are running too. Like it speaks to those relationships that are happening around us and they teach us things as well. And again, that's kind of, like I said, Babinskamat reminds us that learning is never truly finished.
When you're ready to learn something, you will learn something. And so that's what that kind of has a little caveat for.
And now
Mhm.
I'm going to give it over to Tana so you can actually talk about what you can actually pick up and use.
So we've got lots of beautiful things for you. Just as an example, starting with this one, we had many maps made. Maps that we were able to find were not created by Indigenous people. And so one of the things that we thought was really important as a group was that we would have 100% Indigenous-made materials. And so that's what you find here. We have a beautiful map of Anishinaabe-Made. So this is the land of the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Odawa people. You can see that we extend multiple within the Midwest, not just in Michigan, but also in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then of course into that lower Canada section as well. And so this was made one of the Indigenous artists that we asked to help with that.
And these are all indigenous plants too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
In
our area.
To our area.
Mhm. Yeah.
The-
Medicines.
Yes.
Yep. These are all either food relatives or medicine relatives for us. And so you can see that connection with our land. And once again, the geography of what that is. Okay. Now you can also see that we have our map of our 12 federally recognized tribes on the right-hand side. And then you can also see on the left-hand side, this is our treaty map. And different treaties in Michigan were created at different times. And what you'll be able to see is how that is broken apart by the different colors and the lines that were established during those treaty times. One of the things in one of the lesson plans that we created to teach about treaties was that at this time it was done in ceremony. And so you also see the pipe there. When that pipe was smoked in ceremony at those treaty signings, there was one group sitting down at the table that never broke that treaty, and that would be the Anishinaabe of Michigan. And so it's with that we reflect upon this particular one with great reverence. Okay. Yeah. So with our learning bundle, you'll also be provided lesson plans. And so lesson plans will be at all different levels. We're starting with awarenesses, which is the very basic. If we understand the depth of knowledge as educators, then we can understand this connection to awareness, understanding, and truth as well. And so this is that I'm just knowing about something, getting to know about something. And so relatives are not resources. And so that'll go through that example of our perspective of what that may look like. Moving on, we also have literature guides. So we've chosen multiple Michigan, or we tried to stay with Anishinaabe within the big frame, right? The three fires. Not all of our books, unfortunately, could be just Michigan tribes. We're hoping to increase those numbers, but Indigenous authors in Michigan is a slowly but surely rising topic. But here we have still an Ojibwe artist or an Ojibwe author with still an Indigenous artist. And so the water protectors, what we've done though is we've taken those books and we've taken our Anishinaabe perspective to offer teachers, educators, family members, parents, grandparents, ways in which they can talk about those books and experience those books at all three of those levels: awareness, understanding, and then truth.
If I may add one thing too here. To Tana's point, yes, we are trying to have as many Anishinaabe art or authors as possible, but we also recognize too that Michigan is home to many other tribal nations that are not originally from here,
Right.
especially when we think about Grand Rapids, Detroit, some of our urban communities. They also have folks from like out west, like our Dene relatives and other folks too. So we want to make sure we do have some of those there to show that while this might be the homeland of the Anishinaabe people, we also share this geography with many too, especially when we get into the history of why that is the case. But that could be a spoiler alert for lesson plans. So we want to make sure we have some time for questions, but we would like to do, because we're educators, we have one last closing reflection we'd like to do before we get into that Q&A. So at the beginning, we talked about senses as languages, ways we take in the world, make meaning, and come to know things. We also named that Anishinaabe ways of knowing operate in a similar way, through experience, relationship, and multiple forms of understanding. We want to close by coming back to those languages and noticing what you actually took in today. So I have a prompt. Ignore the world one because I forgot the world. I know, horrible of me, isn't it? But I have a prompt. We have gifts for those brave folks that would like to do some sharing. But if you'd like to pick one of those prompts with the exception of the world, or you can use we can pretend to have it. Would anyone like to reflect on one of these questions, whether it's the heart, like what moved you today that thinking alone couldn't have gotten to? Or hand, what did this work ask you to touch, hold, or reach towards that you haven't before? Eyes, what are you seeing now that was always there, but you didn't have the eyes for yet? Or the brain, what do you now know that changes something you thought you already understood?
Anybody wanna share?
Well, the original part was the discussion where the history part, so you need to understand the culture or the baseline, like learning the language, you need to understand the history. Where you could go, where you could go about that. I had never thought of it that way. They would tie together like that.
Miigwech.
I have a lot of feelings about this. I really do.
Anyone else
Anybody
want
else
to share?
I think we hear so much about
I wish I had an ear.
education and it kind of is maybe kind of eyes, right? Like so much, my son is an educator and he has a difficult time because of the government getting involved in what he can't teach, right? And so we hear so much about the history that we're neglecting, but this isn't part of what we're hearing. Right? We're hearing about, well, we're not teaching about enslavement.
Yeah.
But we don't hear about, well, we're also not teaching about the history, the people that were here before us and that allowed us to have their resources.
Yeah.
Not necessarily allowed, well, maybe not given opportunity.
There you go.
Otherwise, right?
Miigwech for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful reflection. I'll stop myself. I could talk about these things for hours.
Yes.
Any other reflections?
Go ahead.
For the brain. For the beautiful word for, you know, learning memory songs. And even I've been here, like the foundation of culture, I think it's really incredible, and really motivating. Because it actually does feel, you know, after high school, after college, when you're just kind of expected to, you might learn like a new flower or two, but that's kind of it. So I really like that idea.
And after you're done working too, you need to keep learning. Like, he took an AI class at college, it's like, oh my God. Right? 12 lessons and a final.
Yeah.
But that's where we're headed, and it's scary, and if you
Yeah.
understand more of it. We went to a luncheon lecture about AI, and the English teacher taught it. And you could download a QR code and you could ask it anything, everybody was encouraged to do that. So I asked them, how long will it take for my hip to heal? I recently.
Yeah. Little.
And they said, well, this is the basics, but if you tell us your age,
Yeah.
we can tell you
A little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that Baminskabat, really? So being able to have that circular idea of learning is that I'm not done learning about this. I'm just at this point of learning about it, and then being able to continue that process.
Love going to the lectures at Eric. We've gone to Cross Village. There's so much to learn.
Very
Miigwech,
good.
miigwech.
Miigwech. So one final reflection.
Yep.
Miigwech for all of your reflections.
Absolutely.
They're lovely and beautiful, and really appreciate it. And hearing, like you guys said, a lot of us weren't taught about these things, and we certainly aren't taught to think this way. We were taught to think about knowledge as something that's written, something that's fixed, something you receive. But there are other ways of knowing, and that's what we're trying to show with our Step Into Our Stories learning bundle.
Yeah.
There are ways that are relational, experiential, carried through story, through language, through the body, through the land. And that's not new. I mean, that's how we as Anishinaabe people and our knowledge systems have always worked. But Step Into Our Stories comes from that place. It was created by Anishinaabe people with community to reflect that way of knowing and make space for others to learn through them. And I put this back on here. Gige Zechka Gom, Mampia Yajik, Kina Minwa Manda, Gaminium, Kinagwea Yajik. This work is from all of us to all of you. And as we mentioned earlier, this is an invitation. This is an invitation to you all, and everyone on Zoom too. I haven't forgotten about you. We haven't forgotten. This is an invitation to join us. Ambe, come on this learning journey with us. We're never going to be done. We're going to keep adding things, keep working on stuff. And, you don't have to be an educator to, go through this learning journey with us. We extend our hand as relatives to invite you all to join us. And everything we talked about today,
down here.
We're going to pass these out too, but everything we talked about, oh, you're the best, you, is on IEIMI.org. Everything is.
It's free.
It's all free. And if you are an
Everything is there.
educator, there are SETI credits on there, sketches, so you can get your continuing education for going through this process as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to